All right. Welcome to another deep dive. This time we're going deep into the world of Entropia Universe, and specifically their Loot 2.0 system.
Yeah.
You guys have been blowing up the forums and dev blogs about this update, so I think it's time for a closer look.
It's definitely a big one, and a lot of people are trying to figure out how it all works and what it means for them.
Especially for those of you out there who are really into the real cash economy of the game. We know there's some serious potential here for better loot and maybe even bigger profits. You sent us a ton of info from the forums and dev blogs, and we've been combing through it all.
Trying to get to the bottom of how Loot 2.0 really works. There's a lot to unpack. We're going to try to break it down into something you can actually use.
Exactly. Okay, so first things first. Efficiency. DPP, or damage per peck is out. Efficiency is the new king.
Right. And it's really all about making sure you get the most bang for your buck. The best return on every PED you spend hunting.
They basically used the old DPP values to create the new efficiency ratings. So like the IMK2, which used to have the highest DPP, now has the highest efficiency.
Makes sense. Kind of keeps things consistent, but also shakes them up at the same time.
Yeah. And then you've got something like the Swine Deluxe, which had a low DPP, and now it's got really low efficiency. But here's the thing. Efficiency isn't directly tied to loot composition.
What you actually get when you kill something.
Right. But it does have a huge impact on your long-term games. Higher efficiency means overall you're going to get a much better return on your investment. You got to play the long game.
It's all about the long game.
Now, I know there's been some talk about individual loot pools, like your luck is totally separate from everyone else's, but from what we've seen in the dev notes, that's just not true.
Yeah, everyone draws from the same loot pool.
So consistent returns, they don't really come from dropping a ton of PED on a few big kills.
It's more about triggering as many loot events as possible.
Yeah.
The more you hunt, the more chances you have to get loot.
So instead of sweating it out trying to kill 2 Sand Kings, I'm better off just going after a ton of punies.
Think about it this way. Let's say you spend 5,000 PCD. You could try your luck with those 2 Sand Kings, or you could take down a massive wave of punies. With the punies, statistically, you're much more likely to see returns closer to the game's average.
Interesting. So Loot 2.0, it also really gets into the nitty-gritty of your hunting expenses, right?
It takes everything into account. Your weapon decay, your ammo, healing, armor repairs, everything.
That's wild. So it's factoring in all of my costs.
Yep. But there is some good news there. Armor and healing costs have actually gone down quite a bit with this update.
Oh, wow. That's a huge relief. Armor and healing could really drain your PED in the past. So what about the markup from trading? Does that factor in at all?
No, that's a completely separate system. It's player-driven and exists on top of the core loot system. Same thing with those land area taxes. They just take a straight cut of the loot.
So no extra punishment for hunting in certain areas. Sounds like they're really trying to make things more transparent and fair.
I think so, yeah.
Now let's talk about skill. Does skill still matter as much in Loot 2.0?
It definitely still matters, but maybe not in the way you're thinking. Using unmaxed weapons, for example, it mostly affects the types of loot you get, not the overall value.
Because you're not hitting as hard.
Right. Your damage output is lower. But missing shots, those skill misses, those will still hit your loot value, just like before.
So if you miss, you're still losing out on some potential PED. What happens when you miss? Like, are you just out of luck?
Well, Mindork did introduce this new bonus pool with this update, and get this, it's funded by skill misses.
Real?
Yeah, it's also topped up by PvP and some other activities, so some of the PED you lose from those misses, it might come back around to you in another way.
Interesting. It's like they're saying, even if you're not hitting every shot, you're still contributing. I see Mindork is still recommending maxing out your gear for the best results.
Yeah, I think that's always going to be the best way to go. But the penalty for not doing it isn't as bad as it used to be.
Let's talk about optimal loot. I think there's been some confusion about what that actually means.
It's really all about the composition of your loot, not the overall value. It's about getting those really good items.
Okay, so what's the secret to achieving optimal loot? What do people need?
Maxing out your hit ability and damage skills for your weapon is a big one. And don't go overboard with amplifiers. Anything over 50% of your weapon's max damage will actually work against you.
And keep those healing costs down.
Absolutely. And hunt efficiently. The lower your cost per kill, the better.
So it's not just about finding the creature with the highest loot value. It's about finding the creature that you can hunt most efficiently.
You got it.
Now, do you have to hunt creatures below your level to get optimal loot?
Not necessarily. As long as you're following those guidelines, you should be good to go.
Got it. Okay. So, last thing, crafting. Mindark's been talking about making some big changes to the crafting system and resource distribution, right? Trying to create a more balanced economy. What's the latest on that?
It sounds like they want to simplify things, like reduce the number of components and resources in the game, make sure that most items actually have value, and they're going to change the mix of items you get from looting, crafting, and even from events.
So for anyone who's serious about making some PED in Entropia, this is huge, right?
Huge. They're going to have to pay close attention to these changes and how they impact the market for different resources. There are going to be some opportunities there for sure.
Wow. Loot 2.0. It's not just a tweak, it's like they're resetting the entire Entropia economy.
Yeah, pretty much. And if you want to stay ahead of the game, you really need to understand how this all works.
We've covered a lot of ground, but we're just getting started. Stay tuned, because we're about to take an even deeper dive into Loot 2.0.
All right, so we've been talking about Loot 2.0, and it's time to get into some practical strategies, stuff you can actually use.
Yeah, let's talk about how we can actually take advantage of this new system. One thing we know for sure, cost efficiency is key. It's not just about finding the creature with the highest loot value, but finding the one that you can hunt most efficiently.
Exactly. Let's say you're using an IMK2, top of the line when it comes to efficiency. But you might be tempted to go after the toughest creatures you can find, right?
Sure, thinking that's where the big money is.
But you gotta be careful. If you're spending a fortune on ammo and repairs and constantly having to heal yourself, you're actually losing PED.
Those costs add up fast.
They really do. It's about finding that balance, where your damage is high, but your costs are low.
Finding that sweet spot. And that's where understanding optimal loot comes in.
It all comes together. Remember, optimal loot, it's not about the total value. It's about getting the right stuff, the stuff you actually need.
So let's say I'm looking for Vibrant Sweat. It's a valuable crafting component. Are there certain creatures or strategies I should focus on? What are the insider tips?
It's tough to say for sure. There's no one-size-fits-all answer. But you can use what we know about Loot 2.0 to make some smart choices. First, you got to do your research. Find out which creatures drop Vibrant Sweat.
Okay, so I know what creatures to target. What's next?
Analyze everything, their stats, their weaknesses, how much it actually costs to hunt them. Remember, efficiency is king.
And optimal loot is queen.
Right. And they gotta work together to get you the best loot.
So I'm considering my weapon, my armor, the cost of ammo, healing, even how long it takes me to kill each creature.
Entropia Universe has always been a game about strategy, and Loot 2.0 just takes it to the next level.
So you're not just out there blasting away, you gotta think.
If you want to be successful, yeah.
And we can't forget about teamwork.
Oh yeah, teams are huge in Entropia.
Always has been a very social game. In Loot 2.0, I think it makes that even more important.
Definitely. If you're hunting in a team, you can split the costs, right?
Share the burden.
Right. Everyone can focus on a specific role. You can take on tougher creatures.
More efficiently.
And it's just more fun to play with friends, especially when you're all getting great loot.
So finding a good team or society is really important.
For sure. They can give you advice, help you out when you need it, even provide financial support.
It's all about working together and using all the resources you have available. Knowledge really is power in Entropia Universe.
No doubt about it.
This is making me think about the long-term impact of Loot 2.0. It feels like Mindark is really trying to make the game more sustainable, more engaging.
I think so too, yeah. They want to shift the focus away from grinding and towards skill and strategy.
It's not about brute force anymore, it's about being smart.
And by streamlining the crafting system and resource distribution, they're making the game more accessible to everyone.
Not just veterans.
Exactly. It's a good thing for the future of Entropia.
What I think is really great is how transparent Mindark has been through all of this. They're explaining the system, sharing data, listening to feedback.
Yeah, that's a big change. And it shows that they respect the community.
They're treating the players like partners, which I think is really important, especially in a game like this.
Definitely builds trust.
It creates a real sense of community. And that's what Entropia is all about, right?
Absolutely.
So to all of the Entropians out there, if you haven't jumped back into the game yet, now is the time. Loot 2.0 has created a much better experience. It's more balanced, more rewarding, and more fun.
Dive back in, see what it's all about. You're going to need to change up your strategies a bit, but there's a lot of excitement to be had.
We've just scratched the surface of Loot 2.0 here, but hopefully we've given you a good foundation to start with. Remember, knowledge is your best weapon in this game.
The more you know about how these systems work, the better off you're going to be.
Don't be afraid to experiment. try new things, and share what you learn. Entropia is constantly changing, and that's what makes it so great. There's always something new to discover. Now, before we wrap up, there's one more thing we need to talk about. It's that bonus pool. The one that's funded by skill misses.
We've covered efficiency, optimal loot, how to manage your costs, but this bonus pool, it's still a bit of a mystery.
Mindark hasn't really revealed all the details about how it works.
No, they haven't, but we've been digging through the forums and the dev blogs, and we might have some insights.
Okay, give us the goods. How does it work? How can we tap into its potential?
Think of it like a giant pot of PED. It takes a portion of the PED that's lost from missed shots and other inefficiencies, and then redistributes it back to the players.
So even if you're not a perfect shot, you still have a chance to benefit.
Right. It's like a safety net. It helps to balance out the risks of hunting, and it adds a little bit of unpredictability to the game.
The big question is, how do you increase your chances of getting a piece of that bonus pool? Is it just luck? Or is there something you can do?
That's the million PED question. I think Mindark has kept it vague on purpose so that people can't game the system.
So it's like a secret formula.
Pretty much. But based on what we've seen in the forums, there are a few things you can do.
Like what?
Engaging in activities that contribute to the pool seems to help. So PvP, events, stuff like that. It's like you gotta feed the beast.
The more you put in, the more likely you are to get something back.
But the exact formula, that's still a secret.
It's a gamble.
It is. But that's part of what makes Entropia so exciting.
All right. We've gone deep into the world of Loot 2.0.
We've given you a lot to think about.
But before we say goodbye, we want to leave you with some final thoughts. Stay tuned for our last insights.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We've spent a lot of time talking about Loot 2.0 and Entropia Universe.
We have efficiency, optimal loot, that mysterious bonus pool, a lot to take in. We've given you all the info, the blueprints. But now we got to talk about how you can use it all to your advantage in the game.
It's time to put it all together.
So what are the most important things to remember for those who are ready to jump back into Entropia?
Well, like we've been saying, efficiency is king.
Absolutely.
Every decision you make, the creatures you hunt, the gear you use. It all comes down to getting the most value out of every single PED you spend.
It's not about getting rich quick. It's about thinking long term.
Right. And don't forget about optimal loot. It's not about how much loot you get. It's about getting the right loot.
The stuff you need for crafting or trading.
Exactly. If you can master optimal loot, you can make a lot of PED.
Okay, what about that bonus pool? The one that's funded by skill misses.
We still don't know everything about it, but we know it has the potential to be huge.
Mindark is keeping it pretty close to the chest.
They are, but from what we've seen, it seems like staying active is key. Doing things that contribute to the pool, PvP, events, stuff like that.
Like you said before, you gotta feed the beast.
Exactly.
This whole deep dive has really shown me how important knowledge and strategy are in Entropia Universe.
It's not just a point-and-click game anymore. You really got to understand the systems if you want to be successful.
The whole new level of depth.
It is. Loot 2.0 has really changed the game.
So to all of the Entropians out there, new and old, embrace the challenge, learn the systems, and keep exploring. Entropia Universe is constantly evolving, and that's what makes it so great. There's always something new to discover.
See you in the game. Happy hunting, everyone.